That's why she cranked it out.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. Meeting of the Morrison County Board of Commissioners. Look for an approval of the board minutes.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Our next item of business is a once-a-year item of business, and this is where Extension comes in, the Extension Committee comes in, and this year, the Borish family comes in. And I would invite you all up here to,
Okay.
that's a good place, yep.
Should we sit or can we stand?
You can sit, you can stand, you can, whatever is comfortable.
Okay.
If we're going to sit, we need to drag one more chair.
We'll stand if that's all right with you.
You can certainly stand, absolutely.
Okay. If the microphones will pick us up, we can stand because then we
And
can be portable.
if you would be very kindly to introduce everyone, that would be great.
That sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to just say a few words and then we'll get to the introduction.
Certainly.
If that's all right. So yes, it's our pleasure to be here once a year, like you said, to honor the Farm Family of the Year. So the University of Minnesota has a program that honors farm families and highlights agriculture. And so Morrison County for years has done this. And the Extension Committee has done a good job of exposing many different types of farming. So we've done lots of dairy farms, lots of beef cattle, row crops. A few years ago, they highlighted direct marketing of local foods. They've done beekeepers, and this year we are highlighting aquaculture. So that's a really unique and different thing that you wouldn't think of as farming, but we're thinking of it as farming this year. So we have Gary and Jeff Borash, who are the 2018 Farm Family of the Year, and Katie Winslow, who is the new Extension educator for Extension. So we'll introduce her in a few minutes, but we want to give a few minutes to have you talk about what your farm is and how we think of it as a farm, but it's aquaculture.
Good morning.
Morning. Actually, my dad started out in the business in 1936. He started catching minnows in rivers, wild minnows, and he did that for a number of years. And then in about 1960, he discovered that it was more economical to raise the minnows in ponds, and that's where the aquaculture came in. He started getting sucker eggs, hatching them, stocking the fry in ponds, and I continued, and my son is continuing into the business. It's been 82 years now that we've been in the live bait business. Basically what we do is in the spring, when the suckers are running in the rivers, we go and catch the suckers. We strip the eggs out of them. It doesn't hurt the suckers any. We just basically rub the belly. The eggs come out into a dish pan, and we fertilize them with a male at the same time, and let the sucker go back in the river and hope to see them again next year. From that point, we take the eggs home, put them on our hatchery. It takes anywhere from 21 to 25 days to hatch the eggs. At that point, they're fry. They're about a half-inch long, little tiny minnows. We take those, fry, and stock them in our rearing ponds, which we rent around the state. We rent about 1,100 acres of water. We have 53 different ponds that we use, and it takes those minnows till about mid-August, first part of August, to be a saleable size. And our best-selling size is from 5 to 7 inches. I don't know if you've ever gone fishing with suckers or not, but they use them for northerns, basically, catching northerns. After that, basically we start catching the new crop and do that until fall. In the fall, just before freeze up, all the smaller ponds we trap out and move to bigger ponds, which we aerate in the wintertime, keep the minnows alive for our next spring sales. We sell minnows basically almost all year long. There's only about 1 month or a month and a half that we don't sell. The seasons run till the end of February, so the month of March and April, we're not really selling. Those 2 months, we're basically like any other farmer. We're working on our equipment, getting it ready for spring, so we basically work all year long at this. And I do have a few pictures I'd like to pass along. I'll kind of put them in order here. So the first picture will be where we're catching the suckers in the river. We get a group of guys together, we go with the net, catch the suckers. That's when we strip them. The second one is where we get the eggs. We're still in the river at that point. We hold them until the end of the day. And at the end of the day, when we have enough, we go home and we put them on our hatchery. And the last picture is a picture of our hatchery jars. And there's about 35,000 eggs in each jar. So it's kind of a long, continuing process. Does anybody have any questions?
Seems like a lot of labor intensity here.
Yeah, a lot more than people realize. They think you just go out and catch minnows and sell them to a bait shop. You know, and we don't sell to bait shops. We sell to other wholesalers, which sell to bait shops. So we're on the beginning end, just like a farmer. He doesn't sell cornflakes, and we don't sell to bait shops. So it's the beginning of the minnow, I would guess.
Yeah, that's good.
Mr. Chair, how far does your market reach, do you think, based upon that network?
Right now, my farthest customer is from the Twin Cities area. So he delivers around the Twin Cities area. A few years ago, we actually had a customer that covered several states. He went out to New York and Maine. My minnows went as far as Maine, actually. Those days, that customer retired a couple of years ago, so he's no longer in business. But they have gone halfway across the United States.
So how far north in Minnesota?
Basically north. I have a customer from Brainerd, and he goes north from there and delivers. So it's kind of from the Twin Cities to probably 50 miles north of Brainerd.
Okay.
Everything in between.
So where is home for
Royalton.
use? Royalton.
Royalton is our home base.
So when you're netting these suckers when they're running, is that just on public waters?
Yes, and we get a permit from the DNR. Basically, we fence the river off so the suckers can't go any farther than that. They get thicker, they group up, so it's easier for us to catch them. And we're permitted to do that. Plus, we buy a number of licenses, like $3,800 worth of licenses to operate this business from the DNR. They own everything. And we have to buy it from them. We pay $6 a quart for the eggs to the DNR because they own them, evidently.
So,
Wow.
so you couldn't raise your hatchings to adults and then eliminate that process, could you?
No. You need the acreage to grow them on. They grow basically on the feed that's in the pond. And every pond is different, and we keep records every year how much fry we put in a pond, how big they got that year. And if you put too much fry, I was saying in August, they're that 5-inch size. If you put too much fry, they'll be 1.5 inches. If you don't put enough fry, they'll maybe be 7 inches, but you don't get many minnows back. So it's a fine line of stocking each pond, and every pond is different. In different areas, we go as far as Wilmer for ponds, and we don't go real far north. Fort Ripley is about as far north as we go, but we cover a pretty vast area all the way from Buffalo across the state all the way to Wilmer, and kind of everything in between.
So these ponds would be on private land?
These ponds are all privately owned. We lease the entire pond from the farmers so that no one else has access to them. They're basically our private pond once we have them leased.
Fantastic.
If I may,
Fantastic
Mr.
story.
Chair, growing up and, when we were deer hunting and doing whatever, we'd come across these ponds.
You may.
And they were clear. In the wintertime, you might have a foot of snow out there. Could you explain why there's no snow on these ponds at all?
Years ago, we kind of quit the last few years. We basically plowed a lot of ponds off, took the snow off so the sunlight can get through the ice to the plant life in there and create oxygen. So once we had a foot of ice or so, we would plow several ponds to keep them alive because we need minnows in the spring right away for our sales. We start selling basically the first part of May for the opening of fishing season, mid-May. So we have to keep minnows alive throughout the winter to do that. And we finally, a few years ago, decided rather than plowing the ponds, we'll trap those ponds out, catch the minnows out of them, move them to a pond that we aerate in the wintertime. We have several ponds we aerate. We have electric motors that run aeration systems, and that seems to, we've never lost a pond that we've aerated. They've always lived over. So when you plow, it's 75% chance they're going to live, but there's always that 25% chance they're not going to live. So we decided to go with 100%.
We've heard a lot from you, Gary.
Yeah.
But Jeff, I know you're involved too, and I think you do a fair amount of stuff. What might you do on a daily basis or on a yearly basis? What kinds of things are you involved in?
Well, pretty much all the same
Everything?
things.
I'm thinking Jeff is the quiet one
I
here.
think so.
Jeff is the worker. Dad is the one that's doing the talking. I like it.
Rumor has it Jeff is taking over, is that correct?
Right. I have one more year, and then I'm going to retire, and Jeff's going to take over the business. He's worked with me ever since he was a small child, actually. He started when he was 6, 7 years old. We have a picture of him about this high in waders.
Okay.
Well, speaking of waiters, you should
Yeah.
tell about how you have found a few waiters over the years that they like.
Yeah.
But
It's just like anything. When you find something you really like, works well for you. A few years ago, we found a pair of waders from Cabela's that we really liked. They fit nice, they worked good, held up well, and I've gone through this over the last 40 years. When you find something you like, 3 years later, you can't get it anymore. So we bought a 15-year supply. And sure enough, 2 years later, they changed the manufacturer on the waders, and they were no longer a good pair of waders. So we're still sitting well. We have 10 years worth left, so.
Commissioner Jelinski and Commissioner Wincher, you serve on the Extension Committee. Would you like to say anything? I know, Commissioner Wincher, you know Gary.
I know Gary, yes. Oh, there's a lot of things I can say, but I think this is such a unique business, and Gary does so much for the community also, and Jeff does too. And I always bring up the turtle races and the turtle things. And now I know you can't do that anymore. Maybe you don't have to say why you can't do it, but you used to go and maybe explain for the kids at Platte River Days on the turtles too. It has nothing to do with fishing, but kind of.
Yeah. As we're catching our minnows, sometimes you get small painted turtles in your traps. And the Lions Club in Royalton always on Platte River Day runs turtle races for the kids, and the kids just love it. So I would collect the turtles, keep 40 or 50 turtles for the races for the kids to use. And we kind of got away from it now. There's been more regulation on it and that, so we have to buy the turtles from a regulated person that does turtles. Everything is very specific nowadays.
There's a few regulations and everything, isn't there?
Yeah, it sure is.
Can't even take a turtle.
But I would just like to make a comment in regards to the Extension Committee. The Extension Committee undergoes every year, this is just one piece of the Extension Committee, but undergoes every year selecting a Farm Family of the Year. And it truly is not just, oh, let's pick them. There's actually a little bit of talking and thinking that goes on before a farm family is in fact picked. And to me, it's kind of a big deal. In fact, it's a real big deal.
I appreciate you highlighting that because you're right, it's not just picked out of the hat. What parts of the county have we honored? What parts of agriculture have we honored? So you're right, there's a lot of discussion and thought that goes into that.
There is.
And I'll have one last question. I already forgot, but I know there's a technical name for your farm. What is it called?
It's called aquaculture, and that we do. And our business is called Borish Wholesale Live Bait. But
Isn't there one other technical term in there that, something to do with the fishing, or is not the?
Is it aquaponics? No,
I
it would be
can't remember. I thought you said-
aquaculture, yeah,
Okay,
we're
all right.
listed under aquaculture.
Okay.
Yeah, it's farming, just a different crop.
Sure.
And how many fry do you guys produce a year? Do you have any idea?
Anywhere from 2 to 3 million
Wow.
a year, depending on the year. It's, you don't get all those back. There's always some loss. You know, some will die. The things in the ponds eat them, whatever, birds. I always had the 5th grade or 3rd grade class come every year from the Royalton Elementary School. And I always gave them a tour of the hatchery. And every year, one of the kids asked, well, how much money do you make? It never fails. And I kind of explained it to the kids, well, there's 2 million minnows on the hatchery. If we sold each minnow for $1, how much would that be? And they all go, whoa! I said, but I don't get $1 a minnow. They don't all hatch, and I can't catch them all back. So I make a living. That's basically what we do.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, Jeff, what are your plans? Do you have any aspirations? Do you have any ideas on what you want to do as you kind of
Just to
transition to the ownership?
Just try to continue the business and hope that it doesn't get overregulated where you get pushed out of business.
Sure. Yeah, it's a lot of entities I'd imagine you have to deal with when you're talking about live transfer of animals. What about any like aquatic invasive species
Well,
issues?
that's
Has that
gonna be where the
changed your
problem
business?
comes in.
Okay.
Years to come is going to be invasive species and what they allow you to move.
Okay. I'd imagine that's a challenge, just because we see that on a lake basis. I can't imagine it's not impacting what it is you do when you're dealing with that.
It's not so much with our business since we're all on private land,
Okay.
but a lot of other minnow dealers deal with a lot more of it.
Sure.
Okay. Interesting. Well, good luck.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna give you one more question. So when you catch these suckers, I'm assuming there's other kind of fish in there once in a while? Do you ever see any nice walleye, northerns, or anything of those?
Very seldom. The northerns run before the suckers do,
Okay.
so they're done running. And the rivers we're in, actually, one river we do is Pine River, and the DNR has a walleye trap about 7 miles downstream from us, so they catch all the walleyes before they ever get to us.
Okay.
And the river that the picture is in is a smaller river, and the walleyes just don't seem to run up that river.
And I would just assume that you get them, but apparently you don't.
Very seldom we
I'll be
catch
darned.
a game fish.
Well, again, I want to congratulate you guys and
Absolutely.
appreciate you coming, and
We have a plaque that we'd like to give the Borishes. So here's a plaque on behalf of the Extension Committee and the County Board in Morrison County. So thank you. Congratulations. Do you mind if we get a photo?
I would like that if we could.
That'd be great. Okay.
How do I believe that?
Right here? Okay.
Okay.
Right down here.
So we'll have you two right next to each other. If you want to get middle there, and kind of hold it between the two of you.
Put your skills to use. Yes, that's right. You're a photographer.
Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to take a photo. Look at the sheriff's.
Look at that, exactly.
All right, look at this, all the cameras, you guys are very popular.
With them first.
1, 2.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Congratulations. Good job. I'd love to go on a tour of your business. It sounds like an awesome deal.
Taking some selfies.
Take care, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
it's an interesting business.
We have diversity in agriculture here.
We do have diversity, absolutely.
Yes, that's right.
Not too many people knew about it.
And now, Suzanne, why don't you take a chair?
Okay, let's do
And we will continue on with a little more extension.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having us for this continuing portion. Yeah, we want to introduce Katie Winslow. She is the new horticulture small farms educator. You know that we have the Tri-County System for Extension with Benton, Stearns, and Morrison. Morrison, or I should say, all three counties have 3 extension educators. One is crops specialist, one is a livestock person, and this role is a dual role. It has horticulture and small farms. So in Morrison, or I should say Benton and Stearns, Katie works a lot with the master gardeners. In Morrison, it's much more about the local foods and direct marketing of foods and working with local marketers and local producers. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Katie.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Katie Winslow. I'm originally from southeastern Minnesota. My family farms down there. We raise pigs, corn, and soybeans, and we're one of the oldest farms in the state. We started in 1854, so that is something that my family is very proud of, and I am very proud of. And our farm isn't quite big enough for both my brother and I to farm full-time, which is why I work outside of the family farm. And came up here. I've been a part of the university system, my entire life, really. I've had a portion with the university and got my degree in agricultural education from the Twin Cities. Decided not to go directly into education, so I worked in a few other positions first before moving up to the St. Cloud area and taking this role with Extension. And having seen the work that Extension did in my home county, it's something that I'm very excited to be a part of as we move forward. So working with horticulture, small farms, and local foods, this first year I'm focusing a lot on training and making sure that I have the best technical knowledge to support our community members. So I'm doing that through a variety of classes and different courses that I'm able to participate in. Up here in Morrison County, I have had the opportunity to attend your Sprout here in Little Falls back in October to see what that was all about, and I'm hoping to come back in the spring maybe when there's a little more stuff growing to be able to sell. It's kind of the end of their season right now. Also been trying to make connections with the Purple Carrot organization for your direct foods grocery store system that is coming about. And at this point, I'm really looking for any other areas that we can be involved with. My Morrison County portion is a little bit smaller percentage-wise as far as funding goes, so the amount of time that I have to dedicate, I have to balance that as well with the other 2 counties. But it is something that I'm very excited with. Having grown up around agriculture, supporting those small farmers is something that is very near and dear to my heart. So very much looking forward to being a part of this system, and thank you for your continued support.
Do you have any questions for Katie, or anything any guidance or expertise or knowledge you want to?
Well, I'm thinking, based upon your smile, you're kind of liking what you're doing so far.
Yes, I am loving it. It's been a lot of fun so far. Hopefully you guys are seeing my articles in the paper. I've been trying to get some notifications for farmers that are up in this area of events that are going on as well.
Any questions for Katie?
It's welcome.
Thank
All
you.
right, well, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you very kindly.
That was short and sweet. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
And that'll take care of Extension for today. And I did see the sheriff in the house. Good morning, Sheriff. You're next.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff.
So we have the October report that we'll be going through. Busy month as usual. We did a lot of community outreach. I don't know if you can scroll down at all, Tabitha, some of the photos.
We're having a little conversation here,
Oh,
sorry.
I can wait.
No, apologize about that.
So anyway, we just kind of want to highlight
job.
some of the things that we did through the month. First picture, top left, was Sergeant Brill, our correctional officer, Sergeant Brill. I took the photo, and Chief Deputy Jason Worley is with as well. We're back into that routine, going around to the schools and trying to interact with the children. And on this date, I guess, we were with the SG Night students in Randall. Top picture to the right, this was Mrs. Hammer's fifth grade class. They actually reached out and they wanted to get a little education on 911 dispatching and what our deputies do. So we sent out Chief Deputy Jason Worley. I know it's kind of a hard photo to see, but I believe 911 dispatcher Rachel Zimmerman's in that photo as well. The big photo in the middle, we got involved with an active shooter training scenario, and I think I mentioned that previously last month. We worked with the Royalton High School, and what we wanted to do is get our command post actually utilized in a real, or as far as close to a real-life setting as we could. So we did this scenario. We actually had an active shooter, and then we utilized our deputies and the Royalton Police Department, Gold Cross Ambulance, Royalton First Response Team, Royalton Fire Department, and then we also got the Royalton administration involved as well. So just like any event, we got the command staff and we got around our table and we went through this scenario. And a lot of times law enforcement, we practice this a lot. And our job is always just to take out the threat, but really we focused on working with the school administration during the scenario, working on press releases. What are we going to tell the media? Who's their spokesperson, working with myself, make sure we're having the same message. And then really the aftermath, while this is going on, what are we going to tell the public? What are we going to tell the parents? Because even if we're blocking roads, guess what? If the parents don't have any information, they're going right through those barricades and they're going to get to their kids. So we had to come up with a location designated and that we wanted the parents to go to so we could reunite their kids with the parents and be yet be accountable so we know every kid's accounted for in that high school. And we also talked about how we're going to have to deliver a message to the parents, you know, if they have deceased children at the school. So those were the hard conversations that need to take place because we wanted to deal with it beforehand, and we hope to God this scenario never happens, but if it does, we want to be as prepared as possible. So it was good. We also interfaced with the school security camera system. We're able to take their camera system and put it on a laptop computer that we had in our command post. And it's really cheating, but if you got to cheat to win this scenario, that's what you got to do. So we're able to track the suspect every hallway that they were going through and tactically advance on the suspect with our team and take out the threat. So as you can imagine, we worked in our command post. We got some software that we had to download in order to get the Royalton School Security System, camera system on our computer, but everybody was huddled around this little laptop. So now we do have a big screen TV that we use for our drone and other purposes. We're actually just had to purchase a little extra cord and a little more technology to be able to get that school camera system on our big screen. So now we all don't have to sit around one little laptop and watch. So good things are happening because of going through this scenario-based training. Just some more pictures. We had October was a month that we went around to multiple schools and did fingerprinting for the kindergarten class. So a lot of funding that comes in that we receive, we pays for like the fingerprint cards and education cards. So we're putting it to good use and making sure that we're visible and interacting with our students. Any questions on any of that stuff?
Sheriff, I have to commend you on that. I think that having law enforcement, whether it's medical, first responders, firefighters, et cetera, involved in our youth, schools or otherwise, pretty much second to none. And I mean it. I really commend you for your actions in this. To have law enforcement in our kindergarten classes, to have law enforcement in our senior high school classes, there's just not any words to put to it, the importance that it is, and I commend you for that.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I listened to you on the radio, was it yesterday? They were called in?
Party line, yeah.
Okay. And I almost called in because the questions are that, you did a wonderful job, but
Thank you.
I don't know if maybe this is something I was going to call in and say, you know what, Sheriff, I was going to say, what do you do for the schools? Don't look at the other side. You guys do such a great job. I hear so many from teachers, because I'm married to one, but how your deputy sheriffs and yourself, again, it's just a tremendous thing you do in the schools, and I just grateful that we have you as a sheriff.
Appreciate that.
Sean, I got a question. When the shooting thing started a few years ago, they taught the kids to get into classrooms and barricade doors. Is that still the way they're doing that, or are they having kids get out of school as fast as they can?
So what we do now is we sent a couple deputies to Ellis training. The acronym, bear with me, I think it's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. But it doesn't necessarily have to happen in that order. So what they're doing now is they're looking at the time frame it takes law enforcement to get to the scene. Okay, so if there's an active shooter at a school, let's just say out in the county, we know. Let's say it's out in Upsala, we know it's going to be a few minutes. If we happen to have someone in that area, great. If not, everybody's coming. Todd County, DNR, State Patrol, it doesn't matter. If you're a licensed peace officer, you're coming. The issue is we found out that too many people are getting killed from that time frame of when we get the 911 call to when our responders get on scene. So that's where this Ellis program comes into place. And to kind of answer your question, it used to be years ago where, okay, we're going to lock the door, we're going to turn the lights off, and everybody hide underneath a desk. And that was all great, except for the suspect would either breach a door, break a window, get in, and just boom, 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 start shooting everybody that's visible. So now it's really thinking outside the box. And what can you do in your work area? What type of equipment do you have? If an active shooter came in here right now, what could you do as a board? What do you have at your arsenal? It might be a coffee cup. It might be a computer. It might be an exit door that's close to you. If you don't have that, what are you going to do? And it's just thinking outside the box. And realistically, what it is using a fire extinguisher, if you have that, spraying the suspect in the eyes. If you can evacuate and get out, that's what you should be doing, because you don't want to be held hostage in your own area right here. But if you can't, there's other alternatives too. If you have some time to work with, you might be shutting the doors and securing everything where they can't get in, or that means tying something off or just pushing barricade doors, desks, whatever you got in front of the door, buying yourself time. But then the other element is fighting back. And as a last resort, it might be your only resort, but you got to be able to distract the suspect. And if everybody's on the same plan and everybody attacks the shooter, I don't care how good you are, it's going to be hard for the shooter to do anything when you got everybody collapsing on him. So it's really just going through and thinking outside the box, where we're not going to just shut the light off anymore and hide underneath the desk. We're going to do everything in our power to evacuate, and if that's not an option, then fight back, but use the equipment we have in our own rooms to be able to use that as barricades, et cetera. So,
Thank you.
does that make any sense?
Well, because it has changed a lot, that's why I asked that question. I think it's going in the right direction too, so thank you.
So we still do that LS training, and not only have we expanded that to the schools, we've expanded that to different businesses, we've expanded to, I know churches have inquired about it, I don't think we actually went through with the church yet, but we're getting multiple phone calls, and we've directed some to the city of Little Falls because they've actually sent some instructors too, so we help each other out, and it's a good way to give back to our community, because if it does happen, we want them to be prepared, obviously. Any other questions? Okay, moving through, I'm just going to kind of scroll down. We'll have a 2-year comparison so we can go over our complaints later, but for training, there's nothing listed other than 2 officers attended K-9 emergency care training. I'll be honest, I got this report late yesterday, so I had to do a little research and say, what is this? Because I'm going to get asked probably. I guess what it is so our K-9s, the canine and their handlers go through a training down in the metro, and there's a veterinarian that comes in, and they talk to them, basically saying, okay, if officers get hurt in the field, this is how you take care of each other. But how do you take care of your dog if your dog gets shot at, if your dog gets stabbed, if your dog gets wounded? Those critical moments that you are with your dog before it gets to the vet, how are you going to care for it? So that was some of the things that were talked about, basically treatment in the field, how to take care of your canine. They also went into the issue Narcan. Part of this training was that your dog's actually going to get Narcan. So if your dog's doing a drug sniff around a vehicle and it gets a trace of fentanyl and it takes that sniff where your dog, basically like a human being, does overdose, how are you going to treat your dog? So the dog, part of that training was getting issued Narcan as well. So there was a lot of good values that they brought back, and they were able to learn that hopefully they don't have to use, but if it happens, they're prepared.
Those are substantial investments, the canines. It's good to know what to do if something happens.
Yeah. Going over our criminal complaints, we had 99 for the month of October. I'm just going to highlight a couple. We had 9 assaults. 7 of those were domestic assaults, and 2 of those were actually just fights that occurred. So if we're looking at our graph, it would be the 9% in the blue on the top right-hand corner. Moving down in a clockwise motion, we got 10% in the green. That's actually 10 burglaries. 7 of them were from private businesses. 7 of them were from a private residence. 3 of those were a business. Now, I looked into this. Just because it says 10 doesn't mean that they're all actual. That's how it comes in and it's reported. But throughout the case and the investigation, we may find out that, not all 10 are suffice. Maybe one of those was something where later on they found out it was somebody else used this tool or borrowed this tool and actually went in, so it may be classified different later on. Going down to our 6 o'clock position on the bottom, there's 13 in the purple. That's damage to property. The next highest one was 16. That's our red on the left quadrant. 9 o'clock position. Looks like we had 16 thefts. 5 were from a building. 3 of them were gas drive-offs. 1 was a theft from a person. 5 were thefts from a vehicle, not the vehicle itself, but thefts from a vehicle. 1 was a worthless check, and 1 was identity theft. And then the last one is the green quadrant on the top left, and that was 11 scams, fraud. So any questions on any of that? Moving on, our traffic citations, we had 194. We had 20 speed tickets that were issued for the month of October. We had 119 verbal warnings and 28 written warnings. Our 2-year comparison, I wanted to break down and just to see, we got a little difference. Looks like there's 30 ICRs less this year. So I tried to pull October statistics, and wouldn't you know that that's the month I didn't present last year. So I was trying to figure out if there was like a mailbox, a ration of those that got hit or what happened, but it could be just the numbers are down a little bit. I'm not sure. Moving on to our inmate count. Morrison County, we averaged 34 inmates for the month of October. You can see Itasca, we averaged 13. So our total amount of inmates to include Morrison County and out-of-county inmates was 48 that we averaged for the month. And then the last page, just moving down to our out-of-county inmates, we had 31, and we brought in revenue for the month of October at $24,200. I did do a check before I came just to see where we're at this year. Through the month of October, our jail revenue, we brought in $274,230. So I think our jail staff continues to do a pretty good job grabbing out-of-county inmates. With that, I'll answer any questions that there may be.
Any questions for the sheriff?
Sheriff, I got a question. The difference between a written warning and a verbal warning for traffic, is there something that determines that?
So yes and no, it's a good question. So let's say that I run your record and you're speeding and you're going, let's just say 40 and a 30. If there's no violations and there's no record that you've even been stopped, it's more than likely going to be a verbal warning. Now, let's say you've had a verbal warning already, maybe one, maybe two, and I don't think the message is getting to you, that the verbal might not be good enough. Sometimes just handing somebody a piece of paper, even though it's just a written warning, changes their behavior. And we notice that, so it's kind of officer discretion, but sometimes the paper does mean something. And we look at that, if it's a written warning, it's like, well, wait a second, this person's got a verbal, they got a written, there's no more writtens. Now it's gonna be a citation, so.
That's good to know, yeah.
So where are you at in that process? No, I'm just joking.
Please tell me next month.
So, Mr. Chair, to follow up on that, I'm assuming then these verbal warnings have to be put down or tracked somewhere, so it's like, oh, I'm good, I can go speed some more. Those verbal warnings are somewhere.
Yep, absolutely, Commissioner. So our records management system, anybody in Morrison, so basically, everybody uses this system in our county, i.e. Motley, Royalton, Piers, Morrison County Sheriff's Office, LFPD. The only entity that does not use it is the State Patrol. So basically, it's going to be every time you get pulled over, your name will pull up and it's going to list when we had action with you, interaction, and it's going to list what action that was, whether it's a dog complaint, a speeding complaint, or a traffic stop. So
does the State Patrol have their own
Yeah, they just register.
system like that then too? So if the individual who drives heavy has had a number of verbal warnings, they will have that information?
So Commissioner, they have their own records management system. So if you, let's say somebody was pulled over by the State Patrol anywhere in the entire state, that will show up. However, they don't have access to our data. So what they're really using is their own system and the state system when they run somebody's driver's license through DMV. So it populates and they'll see if there's any citations that way and/or the use of their own system. But their system does not interface with ours.
And Commissioner Blaine, I assume you're asking for a friend.
I'll tell you what, this is really helpful information.
Especially when you get here on time, right?
Anything further for the sheriff? Sheriff, thank you very kindly. Have a happy holiday, happy Thanksgiving.
You guys too, thanks.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks.
Next item of business is going to be social services. Brad, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I am bringing back to the board our conversation that we had at planning last week around the interlocal agreement. Morrison County is part of a adult mental health initiative in Region 5 Plus, which includes Cass, Crow Wing, Morrison, Todd, Wadena, and Aiken County. We have been functioning as a regional adult mental health initiative for 20 years at least. We have been structured under bylaws as an organization. All of the funding for our adult mental health services, or most of our adult mental health services, runs through our adult mental health initiative. We receive about $1.5 million in grant funding from the state and federal government. Because of our relationship with Sourcewell and some services that we are beginning to purchase from Sourcewell, we are wanting to formalize the relationship that we have as a regional adult mental health initiative and have the county sign on to an interlocal agreement, which then will allow entities just to contract with our joint powers, our interlocal agreement. And really, the purpose behind this is twofold. Again, it's one contracting entity versus having to contract with all 6 counties for services. And secondly, it will allow us to be insured, so if there is concern about risk, it will be managed through MCIT, so individuals will not be able to hold accountable each county should a service not produce the way it should. And really the service that we're beginning to utilize is what we call a transition specialist who's employed by Sourcewell that can work with our adult mental health clients in trying to transition them out of community behavioral health hospitals and St. Peter, Moose Lake. And so really allowing that relationship between one person within Region 5 Plus working with all of our CBHHs and hospitals, trying to reduce, hopefully, the county cost share for some of those services. And so what I'm here today is to ask for approval for our interlocal agreement.
I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Discussion. Brad, I have a question. Region 5, how long have we been involved? We don't have a contract like this one, but how long have we been involved with Aiken, Cass, Crow Wing, Todd, and Wadena doing this, in this effort, if that's the right way to
So
put it?
for the 5 counties of Cass, Crow Wing, Morrison, Todd, Wadena, it's been at least 20 years.
Okay.
Aiken came on a few years later.
Okay.
About 20 so years ago, the state decided to fund adult mental health services more of a regional approach, so that it would become more of an organized array of services. So we have the mobile crisis teams, which work throughout Region 5. We work with Northern Pines. We have a crisis line out of Brainerd that is funded through the initiative. We are going to have the transition specialists. Last week I talked about the 40 unit housing that's going to be built in Baxter. So these are all services that will help support the work we do with our mental health clients. And so we do it from a regional approach. We still do some things locally, but really the state funnels all of the money through this regional adult mental health initiative.
And this is not something that is brand new to the board today. We beat this up pretty good at our last planning meeting also.
And I think the other, unlike other joint powers, us as a county don't put any money into the initiative. It's all state and federal dollars. We do spend money aside from the state and federal grants as Morrison County and get another grant called the CSP, Community Support Grant, that we maintain, but we don't put any money into the initiative. We receive money from the initiative to provide services. So they also pay for our drop-in center. We get annual funding from the initiative for our drop-in center and for some other services. So,
Anything further? Got a motion on the table? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I have a question. Should I abstain from this since I'm on the Sourcewell board and approve this, or?
I think you're fine
okay,
because you're
I'm
not,
just asking.
it's not a contract with Sourcewell, it's a contract with the.
Okay, I'm just asking.
counties. Good
Otherwise, I'm
question.
fine. Otherwise, I'm
Okay.
fine, yeah.
Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Brad.
at this time, I'd call up Cindy and Jill from Public Health for our Public Health report. I've asked Jill to put together a nurse-family partnership report, and she's going to kind of do both some CHB stuff as well as some NFP information. Oh, no.
Get that plug back in again.
So we'll see how this works, because we sent a link to Tabitha and Deb to show a short video.
Okay.
But,
Very good, thank you.
and our Nurse Family Partnership Program is a local program, but we also operate it through our CHB with Morrison, Todd, and Wadena counties. And so we're here today both to give you some information, but also really to let you know that we're going to be applying for a grant, an NFP expansion grant, hopefully. We're still working out some of the details as a CHB, which would allow another nurse in Morrison County to be trained. So it would not require more staffing, but would change duties of a current nurse who is working on maternal child health. And as Jill will explain, there's been a number of families who have not been able to participate in our Nurse Family Partnership Program because of capacity issues. And so the state has moved forward some grant funding over the last 2 years to expand the ability of counties to provide nurse family partnerships. So I'll maybe turn it over to Jill and her presentation first.
And that being said, good morning, Jill, and good morning, Cindy. Always nice for Brad to bring somebody else along,
Yes.
so thank you.
We really appreciate it, too. So I'm Jill Scott. I'm a public health nurse, and I work strictly with the Nurse Family Partnership Program. So I do part-time home visiting and part-time reflective supervision with the nurses in the other 3 counties. So I've been doing that about 2 years.
think.
Probably a little bit longer.
Yeah, like 2 years and 2.5 years. So the difference between nurse-family partnership and general family home visiting, nurse-family partnership is for first-time moms. The guidelines say that we need to start seeing them by 28 weeks gestation because it's an evidence-based program. So we continue to collect data and send that in to the nurse-family partnership office to continue to show that people who participate in this program have better outcomes. So with this program, we also get data that shows, the benefits to it. So that's a really strong component of nurse-family partnership. And so this just says evidence-based home visiting program, first-time moms starting at 28 weeks gestation. We focus on high-risk families, reducing preterm birth, tobacco use, and improving the socioeconomic status of the families that we work with. The handout that I gave you is something that the state put out, so it's Nurse Family Partnership in Minnesota, and it just talks about some of the statistics. So generally, the median age of people who enroll in Minnesota are 20 years old. Their income is $9,000 a year. 79% receive WIC. It goes over the race and ethnicities of the different people who are enrolling in the program. 91% of babies born full term, 89% of mothers initiate breastfeeding, 50% of mothers obtained their diploma or GED during the program. And I can say that's something locally that we work really hard with moms to try to get them to get a high school diploma or their GED. I would say a lot of them do not have that when they start. And the back of this just talks about a few other statistics in Minnesota. So it's got some pretty strong benefits. On the top of the back, it says, based on a review of 41 NFP evaluation studies, Dr. Miller of the Pacific Institute of Research and Evaluation predicts that nationwide, every dollar invested in NFP will yield a return on investment to the government of $2.40 and to society of $5.70. So that's there. You can switch to the next slide. We've been doing NFP in Morrison and Todd County since 2010. Cass and Wadena joined in 2013. So a lot of this data is pulled as our 4-county team. So it talks about referrals. We've had a total of 101 referrals this past year to the 4 counties, which is an increase from the previous year. We actually have a very high percentage of people who accept our services. 70% of the clients that get referred accept a nurse to come into their home. The Minnesota average is 42% who accept services, and the national average is 27%. So we're doing really well as far as clients accepting a nurse to come into their home. Talks about our current caseloads. Cass County has 10 clients, Wadena County 15, Morrison County 14, Todd County 18. Because I do part-time for each, my caseload should be somewhere around 10 to 11 based on the requirements or the standards of the program. I've been seeing 14 or 15 just because we've had a really huge need and just want to try to help them. So that's the initiative for the grant. We really do have a lot of referrals that I cannot enroll all of them, so to get another nurse trained would be really helpful.
Jill, if I can interrupt you for a second. I believe I know the answer to the question, but I have to ask it anyway. This is basically all based on income, is it not? Or how does this work? Is your program for every pregnant mother or every mother that has just had a baby in the world, in the county?
It is income. They have to meet low-income guidelines. We usually go off of WIC. So if they're eligible for WIC, then we would consider them a low-income eligible for the program. We see some people with private insurance, the younger, like teenage moms who maybe are on a parent insurance, but very few. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 of the 14 or 15 clients that I've seen recently have had a private insurance. Most are on South Country.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But yeah, generally very high risk, including low income. So we're still talking about breastfeeding. We do really encourage moms to initiate breastfeeding.
Currently, we have a 75% breastfeed initiation rate, which is lower than I would like, but we also have had an increase in mental health medication compliance, which is good, but sometimes they can't breastfeed when they're taking some of those medications. So I still consider it a win when that's the reason for not being able to do that. So, but across Minnesota, breastfeed initiation rates are very good. And that's just a little graph to show that.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Jill, what happens if they have the second child? Because here it states that, your first child, I don't know if it says only, but it kind of sounds like that.
So a lot of the clients I see, one of our goals is to not have closely spaced pregnancies. So ideally, they wouldn't have another child when I'm seeing them. However, if they do, I will continue to see that child under maternal child home visiting and get reimbursed to see the second child as well. I just can't utilize the nurse-family partnership curriculum with the second child. And then when the first child graduates from the program at age 2, I often will have another nurse go in and continue to see the second child under maternal child health.
Thank you.
Yeah. Some statistics talking about immunizations, that's a big topic. Children mostly up to date on immunizations at 12 months, 94% of the time, and up to date at 24 months, 90% of the time. Subsequent pregnancies, clients with subsequent pregnancy at 6 months is 0, and at 12 months is 6.3%, which compared to the state and national average being almost double of that. So that's something we talk a lot about also.
Are those immunization percentages for Morrison County or for?
It's the 4 county.
Okay.
Yep. Workforce, this is something that I really found interesting when I ran the reports, that clients who are employed at the start of the program, 58% of them have a job when they enroll in the program, which is higher than the state and national average. But clients who are employed at 6 months and at 18 months is also consistently higher than the state and national average. But at 24 months when they graduate from the program, 84% of our clients had been employed. So that was really, I thought, a really good win for us, which is also above the state and national average for people who are employed in this program. This is the statement I read earlier about the financial impact on every dollar invested, showing a return to the government and society. So that's the same as on there. And this is a little, NFP kind of went through they call it a new brand, but it's just kind of a new marketing campaign. And this is a video that they created about that.
When I found out I was pregnant, I was so scared. It was really difficult. So scared. My mom and dad. It was really difficult. I didn't know how things were working here. I didn't know how things were working here.
No, it's not me.
Better for myself and better for my life and his life. I want better for myself.
I think we'll move along. That's fine.
Here it is if you like to see it.
No, you want to hear it?
Here, Jeb, I can help you out.
So scared.
Yeah, that's okay if it doesn't.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna get out of here. I'm
One
trying
more
to-
chance.
There it is.
It was the summer before.
Not done yet.
I was so scared. It was really difficult not having my mom, my dad. As an immigrant, I didn't know how things were working here. I was at rock bottom, and I found out I was pregnant. I want better for myself and better for my life and his life.
Prenatal and infant and toddler development may be the most opportune time to make lifelong effects on human development and health.
Nurse-family partnerships intervention offers a multi-generational effect. Strong moms raise strong children become strong parents.
With Nurse Family Partnership, we support families in meeting their health and wellness goals for their physical health, but also what it means to be a healthy family.
When a mom has confidence in herself and her abilities, she's going to translate that down to her child. It's going to allow her to work with her child throughout many years as they deal with other challenges that they're going to come up against. When you talk with our moms, most often they have challenges such as homelessness, addiction, they're socially isolated, and that's where Nurse Family Partnership comes in.
No solamente en la palabra, sino en todos. I feel like I'm the support for them, that they're learning themselves, and it's amazing how they learn that they have the power, that they're powerful.
I was in a very bad spot when I found out I was pregnant. I was getting high. I was very nervous and scared. And then I finally sat down and thought, and I went to John Brooks Recovery Center, and I got put on methadone.
It's very common when somebody's going through addiction to have some type of trauma, something that happened in their life that they are trying to cover their pain with their addiction. So I helped her with resources to start counseling.
Dawn helped me with everything, learning how to take care of his needs and take care of mine at the same time.
James is a very happy, alert baby. His development is right on track. Now he's already attempting to try to crawl. He's a gorgeous baby.
Dad.
Katie has helped me a lot, and I think she might be my biggest supporter, honestly. With Vicky, I feel she replaced not having a family. She feels like family. She is family now.
She's always there. It's not just for the nurse part. She's there for everything.
I can't imagine having done all this without having been in the program.
We see long-term effects of the intervention on outcomes that are of unquestionable public health and social importance. Since 1996, we've reached over 269,000 families. If you can change a family, you know you can change a community.
We're at this point right now where we have the opportunity to really scale up based on 40 years of success. We're going to reach the scale that's going to make a real impact in this country.
I want to just be the best mother I can be. I know there's going to be challenges, but I'm okay. I'm ready for that.
Thank you, Ms. Gruber.
Thank you.
Very nice.
The next slide just talked about action plan. We work on continuous quality improvement, always trying to improve. One of our goals for 2018 and 19 is to continue to see more eligible families, hence the RFP, the grant that we're hopefully going to get to have another nurse trained so we can do that. This last year, the 4-county team served 85 families and completed a total of 1,041 visits with clients. And this is an increase from the previous year. Brad talked about the grant a little bit, kind of working on having it's written, it's just kind of getting some fine tuning and working on the budget to submit with that. And in conclusion, I think it's going really well, and I think we have a really good base, and seeing a need of over 50 referrals this past year that I have not been able to enroll, I think really says that there's a need out there for this service, and hopefully we can increase our capacity to see them.
Mr. Chair, Jill, is this just for Morrison County?
The 50 referrals is just Morrison County. So the RFP, the grant will serve just Morrison County.
Okay.
So we are actually applying for the grant through the CHB.
Okay.
But most of the support for that grant will come back to Morrison County. But one of the other goals is to try to create more collaboration amongst nurse family partnerships. So maybe crossing a few county lines and being able to support each other in managing some of the referrals. But we have really seen a significant number of referrals who we think would be willing to participate, but we're unable to serve. And because of the evidence-based nature of this program, there are specific requirements that we have to abide by. But it also provides this good information, as we can see, in terms of the outcomes. So Nurse Family Partnership is really a pretty solid evidence-based program. The other benefit of seeing more mothers is that the reimbursement is a little over 2 times for Nurse Family Partnership versus what it is for just the straight maternal child health program. So, number of benefits. And so that's why we really want to try to expand the program. We wouldn't expand staffing because we have another nurse who's willing to move into and do Nurse Family Partnership along with maternal child health. But it's required that they have to go to Denver for training and things like that. So it becomes a little more costly. You can't just put her into Nurse Family Partnership given the fact that we have the capacity. So.
I have a question. What happened to those 50 people, or what happens to those 50 individuals that are referred that, in all honesty, that you can't help, because you can't put anything more on your plate?
So we have them referred to the maternal child health side. So even though they would have been eligible for a Nurse Family Partnership because they're a first-time mom and they meet the low-income guideline, we just don't enroll them in Nurse Family Partnership and offer them the maternal child health nursing services.
So I'm taking a deep breath here. They're not just swept underneath the rug?
No.
Okay, thank
The
you.
Nurse Family Partnership has a specific curriculum that really allows us to do more with these families than maternal child health, and we cannot use it across our other programs because of the nature of the program.
One other thing to kind of conclude this is that NFP is always working on expanding their services, and they have pilot projects going on throughout the country to serve second-time moms or multi-moms, moms that have had more than one child. So they're working on research to show what curriculum they could offer through Nurse Family Partnership for a mom of a second or third-time child that might still need these services. So my hope is that within a few years, once their research is done, that we will be able to serve them as well. And I think in the market of home visiting programs, it makes sense to do that, but they are not going to just say, yeah, go ahead and do it. They have research, and then they'll have controlled trials and do some randomized trials before they'll come out with a plan. So they're working on it. The reservation population is currently using Nurse Family Partnership to serve more than first-time moms, but it's not been okayed for all of us to do that until the controlled trials and randomized trials are done. And then my hope is within a few years that will come down the road. But right now, it's just in a pilot project.
And the legislature has seen the significant success in evidence-based home visiting. And so really the state has stepped up and said we need to provide more funding to support evidence-based because there's smaller caseloads, more intensive training, and it's hard for counties to continue to do it on a larger scale just because of those two factors. So,
anything further? Yes, Mike.
How about financial guidelines? When you see minimum wage go up and things like that, do the guidelines go up with that sometimes, or does that just kind of kick people out of the program if wages go up? Or I guess where I'm really getting this point is when people go to work, do they end up losing the ability to get these type of programs?
So if they're enrolled and they make under the guidelines, or they're on WIC when they enroll, and then a month from now they graduate college and get a really good job, then once they're enrolled, they can stay on the program for the remainder of the time. But what you're asking is, like, if somebody's making minimum wage more, is that decreasing eligibility for WIC or things like that before? I don't know. If the financial guidelines have changed with the increase in minimum wage, I guess I don't.
The WIC guidelines they adjust those with the increase in minimum wage.
Every year they adjust those guidelines based on the federal poverty guidelines.
Okay.
So the way we reach these young expectant mothers is through referrals. Where do these referrals come from?
Either WIC, because oftentimes once they find out they're pregnant, they come into WIC and start services. And also we have a really good relationship with the Family Medical Center. So when a first time or any pregnant woman comes in, they offer them a public health nurse, at least phone call, and then the public health nurses call them and offer the services that we have that might be appropriate for them. So we have a really good referral relationship with the clinic, and we get a lot of our referrals from them as well.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I don't know who can answer, is this a competitive grant? I got a couple here. And will they, if they do approve it, is it a percentage? Do they have so much dollars available? You know, that would be, I'd like to know that.
It is competitive, but they have said that they're going to spread it out across Minnesota. So it's not just going to stay down in the cities because that's where there's a lot more people and they can, you know, expand their need for a little bit more. They're going to spread it to the rural parts of Minnesota as well. So not everybody who applies will get it, but they did say they're going to try to spread it out across Minnesota. So that's a good thing.
And it's a 5-year grant, so if we,
2022.
so 3-year grant,
Yeah,
3 to
like-
4-year
yeah.
grant. So we'll get a certain amount of money per year until 2022 to continue to expand Nurse Family Partnership.
Mr. Chair, what about the funding now with the program that we started in 2010? Is that still coming from that initial funding stream, or what? How is that funded now?
So currently, we're funded through health plans.
Okay.
And then Wadena County receives a federal McVie grant, which pays for our NFP national office fees, which are about $16,000. So we do not get any more grant funding for the program. So we are funded through health plans and the McVie grant from Wadena County.
Okay, and not local levy dollars at this point, or is it, or public health grant?
TANF, the TANF dollars.
TANF dollars.
Are being used specifically for NFP.
And we get reimbursed per visit, so we don't just get a lump sum, but it's per visit that you do. We get reimbursed for that.
Yep,
so.
the activity.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering what your plan was if we get the grant on recruiting. Are you going to help us, Jill, maybe?
Well, we have a nurse on staff who's willing to do it, so.
Yes, but I'm sure she's doing something right now, too, isn't she?
We're working out the
All right.
details.
We'll have details to work out if we're successful. But again, this is an evidence-based program that has shown very good
Yes.
results for first-time moms.
Absolutely. Anything further from the board? Jill, Cindy, thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
kindly.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Our auditor is not with us this morning, and I'm wondering if, Ms. Gruber, if you're going to
I
take that one?
think I am going to do that. I need to get back to the packet here.
Take your time.
The technology did work. It flipped over to
Assuming that's why.
extending instead of duplicating the screen when I moved it.
Rub and pub.
It's a relatively simple one.
She's trying to find it. Can anybody help me out here? Where's the Grub and Pub?
That is the one
Morrill?
in Morrill.
Oh, okay. Well, because it says Clear Lake Lions. Why would they?
Oh, I can't answer that question.
You'll have to talk to your Lions people, see
Is
what
that
they're doing.
Is that I can't
knows?
answer that.
Well, the Grub and Pub is in Morrison, so
Morrison?
that's why we're licensing it. The Clear Lake Lions, my guess, I'm not,
Are they from Clear Lake?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Could be.
Probably.
Okay, sounds
Maybe.
good.
Obviously, no.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any
Sorry,
discussion?
Nope, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
And I do know that there's a cash report in here for your information that is put in on a monthly basis. And also the warrants as the roll call vote. They were sent out by Joyce.
They were. I'd look for a motion to pay all of the bills.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. This is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
And myself as an aye vote. That motion passes.
Now I'll go
takes
back
care
to
of
the
that.
county administrator.
And now we go back to the county administrator again.
We sent you proposals for board meeting dates. We didn't want to start filling in calendars without that. Tabitha works with the auditor's office and takes a look at making sure that, payment of bills and stuff aligns up as best as possible, but there's certainly some flexibility. I know there was some discussion about maybe making a change to a couple of these to accommodate schedules, which should work if you want to do that. But proposed dates are identified.
And Tabitha, I believe that you Are those two changes on here?
No.
Okay.
Came about after I said
The
that.
two dates on here that are proposed to be changed are? Oh, I didn't see them.
But, oh.
So moving the board dates from March 5th and March 19th to the 12th and the 26th.
Anybody have any heartburn with that? Would you make that change then, please? Okay.
So
And then-
did that make planning sessions out of the other ones, or meant nothing? or-
Well, actually, what it does is move 2 planning sessions in a row on February 26th and March 5th, but we had 2 planning sessions in a row at the end of March anyway.
Okay.
So when there's 5 Tuesdays that happens, it's not that big of a deal. We can make adjustments, and we'll either cancel one at the time if there isn't enough to talk about, or there will be, and we'll have 2
Sounds
planning
good.
sessions in a
Thank
row. It happens.
No problem.
And
So it
then I
should work
would-
fine.
I would simply ask Tabitha, you will forward all these to our calendars, okay?
As long as the commissioner that requested that acknowledges how we went out of our way to do that. That's all I ask.
Okay, whatever Randy wants, Randy gets. There we are.
I'll tell you after a while why.
We got that
We
taken
don't
care
want
of
to move
now.
on. But thank you very much.
Yes.
And we shall move on.
Thanks, Deb.
Anything else, Administrator?
No.
Okay. Then I think we'll scratch that, and we're going to look to, the boys are here. We've got a building project update this morning.
Could I just get approval on those, just so we
Excuse
know,
me.
and I'm comfortable
I'll make a
advertising?
motion to approve the county board meeting minutes, or the county board meeting dates, the
Schedules.
planning meeting, public works, and T-SWAC.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
All right, and then we'll,
Good, you?
the Tabitha will work to populate calendars now for 2019, so we have those. If something changes throughout the year, we certainly can make changes, but this gives us a
Yep.
template on what to follow and get
Absolutely.
advertised.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, Randy.
Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just handed out a budget update, current update of where we're at. Not a whole lot has changed since the last time I was here presenting the budget, with the exception of a few piping changes. The big one being, if you remember about a year ago, the maintenance staff at the courthouse fought some cast iron pipe that was above the ceiling. It got to be quite a mess. Now that that area is opened up, ceilings are out, we obtained a price from Gustafson to actually take it down and remove it and reinstall new cast iron pipe. So hopefully get the new building, the new ceilings and stuff in, we don't have to have the same thing happen again. So outside of that, no real major changes to the budget. I do appreciate your time here a week or two ago when we had our committee meeting. I think it was a good chance for everybody to get kind of caught up on the project and talk about, like I said, the jail cameras, which I know is still currently being reviewed by the Department of Corrections, or the meeting to be scheduled. The inspector was supposed to stop by last week, and I don't believe that happened. So I'll visit with Sheriff Larson and see what we can get rescheduled, or need be send an email down to her and then have a conversation. So.
Does anybody have any questions or concerns with this?
Deb, maybe, or Pete, we talked about the electronics for the board meeting. Is that something that's going to go down the?
We're still working on that yet to get further details. I'm actually meeting with, I kind of put a hold on that. I wanted to sit down with the vendor first to make sure that what is in the project and currently bid is really what we need. I want to take a second look at that. I want to make sure it's expensive. It's stuff that can work very different depending upon what's installed. So I really want to just take a minute to pause and go to the vendor and really talk about what it is they're proposing before I bring it to you for consideration, to make sure that we have what we need. And then we're going to talk next Tuesday. There's a building committee. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on kind of moving forward and when you want information, making sure I'm timing right to get you guys what you need when it comes to other issues that might come up, or other ideas that are out there when it comes to the project as a whole. So that'll be good time again to sit down and visit about that. So I appreciate that being on the schedule, and I think that's in the IT training room.
Anything further?
I can let Mike talk just here on schedule if you want to kind of update on where things are at. And
sure, absolutely.
Hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Giving an update of where we're at. Demo on the lower level is completed. Everything's been removed, all the drywall, carpet, glue. The guys started roughing back in mechanical and electrical last week. Steel studs are being delivered tomorrow, and they're going to start framing walls down there. Next week, we're also going to go up to social services on the main level. There are about 4 areas or 4 offices in that area that we are going to demo, so we can put in a data room, an electrical room, and get all that work done. It's for the future phase, but we're going to run all the pipes up there, and there's some stuff that goes to the courts that we're going to reroute up through the room, and so we're done. We don't have to go back in the ceiling, so we're going to get that done also. So.
The
That's kind
basement.
of where we're at, so if you're around, certainly stop down. It's the door on the right, so walk through that.
The basement looks a little different.
Yeah.
All right. Questions?
Good information.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very
Thank you.
kindly. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
That being said, I think we are nearing time for committee reports, schedules, and such like that.
Please don't
And
call me.
we're going to look for is our dates from November 25th through December 8th.
Mr. Chair, could I take one moment just to...
I wish you would.
I had sent out a message and want to make sure it works for a ditch authority meeting to advance that, both of those discussions on ditch 7 and 21. It's not within this current time frame. I know that one commissioner has a conflict starting at 11. The planning session starts at 8:30. I don't know yet what's on the agenda. Do you want to continue with that? Should I try to find a different date, or?
What was that date again? What was that date again? Do you remember?
The 18th of December, it's a planning session day. Kurt Dieter can't be here on the 11th, and I guess I was thinking not doing it on that final meeting of the year, but, I guess we could. It depends on what you think constituency would do is a better, it's between holidays, and I didn't want to.
The 18th is good with me.
You're talking at 10 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, or whenever we're done, right?
I don't think it worked for him.
December.
No, it does work for him.
On the 18th
Of December.
of December. It didn't work for you. You had to leave by 11. I was thinking of starting the meeting by at least 10.
Not the 11th.
Yeah,
I'm
no, not
sorry.
the 11th. Yep.
Sorry.
It was, yeah. Well, we were talking about it, and I just, before we advertise it, before we put that out there, I want to make sure that everybody's okay with us working towards that 18th at 10 o'clock. And then we'll maybe get you information. I do have a handful of emails. I want to make sure, like Kurt had identified, that people are aware that's the day that we're going to talk about those 2 ditch maintenance efforts or ditch repair efforts. We've had 2 different informational meetings. They've been well attended. It's been appreciated, people getting involved in that. But I want to make sure everybody's aware that that's when we'll talk about it.
I'm okay with that. The only thing we have noon is the potluck, and 12:15 I have community development.
And
so
I
we
guess
should
if
be
we
done
miss
by
the
then.
potluck, we miss the potluck.
Well,
We gotta take care of business.
but we should be done by 12:15 or so, wouldn't you think?
Yep, I hope so. It starts
I
at
would
10.
think,
That would
yeah.
be a long.
Okay.
That'd be a long one. I'm good.
Okay, all right, we'll work on that. Thank you for that.
Okay, I guess I'm not going to ask Commissioner Winchell to go
let's
first
look at
today.
my book.
I'm going to look to Commissioner Wilson.
Okay, and we're starting where?
We're starting on the 25th of November.
Okay, we got a planning meeting on the 26th at 7 p.m. Truth and taxation, the 27th. Planning session. Building committee.
What time do you have on the building committee, 11?
I got 11.
Yeah.
Yep, and I got 8:30 planning session and truth and taxation. Is that at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? Mine says 8, but I'm not sure that's right.
Truth and taxation.
Yeah.
6 o'clock is what I have.
6 o'clock?
That's what
Okay,
time it
that
is,
sounds more
6.
right, okay. Doctor, second here once. Okay, then AMC conference on the 3rd. AMC conference on the 4th. Board of Adjustment. Did that just get canceled?
I have a note here that.
Yeah, it's
Just got canceled.
There was
Yep.
nothing on the agenda.
Yep. 7th, Public Works. Or TS, did that just get changed too?
It's T-SWAC, I thought.
It's T-SWAC.
Yep.
T-SWAC, yeah.
But it's it's now Public Works, at Public Works.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and that's at 8:30. That's it? 7th is where you want me to go to?
I want you to go to December 8th,
Okay.
but whatever.
Yeah,
yes.
that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Blaine, starting with the 25th of November.
Outside of,
You got South Country on the 6th.
yeah, outside of Commissioner Wilson's, the only thing I can add is South Country Health Alliance on December 6th.
Okay. Commissioner Lemire.
28th, Public Health, 5 o'clock PM. The 4th, HRA, 1:30. I have a planning session on the 6th.
Yeah, I was saying that, yeah.
Okay. Planning session on the 6th. at
Provided we have
8:30.
agenda items, we'll meet on.
Provided, okay. And that's it.
Excuse me, on December 6th? we
December
have-
6th, yep.
Because we have AMC conference
Oh,
on that
okay,
Tuesday, we
okay.
typically try to schedule a planning session if there's agenda items. If there isn't, we'll like.
So December 6th, 8:30, planning here at the city.
Do you want me to advertise South Country just in case we don't have an agenda? Are you going to go to it if we're planning? Does it conflict with your South Country?
Or you might go to South Country anyway because,
I'll
yeah.
go to South Country versus planning. But to be honest with you, Tabitha and I was going to make this correspondence back then because they're at AMC and we have the annual meeting with them in the dinner on Sunday night. I was actually curious if
They probably won't
Then
meet.
they're going to have everybody drive down to.
No, they're not. That'll be canceled. That's-
Well, I don't know if what's going on would dictate that. I know that there's other discussion items, but
Yeah, so
I don't know.
anyway, I want to check on that, but that would, because of the ongoing
Yes.
issues down there, I would go to Owatonna before I would be here.
And if you don't go,
I'll just publish it just to be safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back to November.
Commissioner Wincher?
T-SWAC is the only thing I have, and that's on the 29th of November. Otherwise, I'm covered. Excuse me,
I was
soil and
gonna say,
water.
who's going with you?
Soil and water. Yeah, soil and water on the 29th, and I'm covered.
and what time of AM?
9 o'clock.
It's from November.
November 25th, at 11 o'clock in the morning, the chaplaincy is having a pizza party at the VFW.
Looking through, but now this book.
And the 26th.
From November to December.
Did we do planning commission on the 26th?
You did?
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
27th, and got all that, 28th, 29th,
Do you have it?
Yeah,
You can't find them now.
I don't
30th,
know where he gets them from, but don't, make sure he double checks it.
29th.
So it's got the right ones in there.
Yes, I do. Armor Statewide Emergency Services Board.
Because this I take with me.
And on the 30th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have EMS Joint Powers Board, Stearns County Service Center.
They send the schedule.
On the 5th. What in the world is on the 5th? Oh, Armor Conference Planning. At 1 o'clock, that's a conference call. And on the 6th is the Armor Legislative Committee. That's a phone conference at 10 o'clock in the morning. On the 7th, also at 10 o'clock, I don't know, I have Sprout for some reason, but I don't know what that's about. I can get back to you if it's anything. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it, and that's all I've got. Is there anything else for the goodness of the cause?
Yes, Mike just sent Wilson to send us that we have a planning session on, is it
So why
Ken?
does that do that in here? Because we,
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
no.
Happy
Would look-
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah,
And
same.
happy Thanksgiving. I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
No discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. We are adjourned. It's
Have a
10:28.
good holiday, Thanksgiving,
Happy holidays.
Tyler.
Happy Thanksgiving, Tyler.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Want to wrap it?